So variables can be seen as a storage box that we can store some data into it. In programming, if we have some kind of data, it could be a piece of text or it could be a number, and it is going to be used multiple times throughout our application, we will store it into a variable. The benefits of the variable is that if we use a number in multiple places in our codes, and we decide to change it, we don't need to change it multiple times throughout our code. For example, if we have a x equal 10 variable, so x here is our variable, we can use x inside anywhere of our code. And if we suddenly want the x to be 12, if we just change the value up here, all of the other places that we used our variable will be changed to 12. And also we can use equation on our variable. So we can add numbers, subtract numbers, and anything else. So now that we know how important variables are, you need to know that variables come within multiple types. If we have a piece of text that we want to store, for example, hello world, this text is of type of string. So how can we create a variable out of this? Since texts are of type string, we can here say string my text equal to that value and then a semicolon to end it. So here we have a variable called my text. My text is the name of the variable, and here is the type of the variable, which is a string, and here is the value that we are going to store inside our variable. Now we can use my text instead of x, and if I run our application, here you can see hello world has been written inside our console. And there are also other types of variables that we can create. Most used ones are string, integers for simple numbers. Let's call this variable a and set the value of 1 to it. Now let's create another variable. It's of type double. Let's name it d and set it equal to 5.3. So the difference between double and integer is that double can take decimal numbers. And we also have float. Let's call it f and set it equal to 5.3 as well. And here you can see it is giving us an error. Float is very similar to the double. It can also contain decimal values. The difference is that float consumes less memory than double. And the double can store a very larger number than float. So in order to differentiate between float and double, we should add an f to end of our value so that C# knows that this value is of type float and it is not double. The last type of variable that I wanted to tell you is type boolean. Let's call it b and set it equal to true. The boolean value can either contain true or false, just like a light switch. It could be either on or it could be either off. Now that we learned about variables, if you want to get a value from the user and store it into our variable, it can simply be done by creating a variable of type string. Let's call it user input. And let's assign it a value of console.readline. The reason that we are using a string type variable is because the console.readline will always return a string value as the user input. So we cannot assign any other type to it. For creating a variable, we can also use something called var. When we create a variable of type var, let's call it v and set it equal to 1, for example. We do not need to assign the type to it. A var variable will decide on its own that what type it is. So if we assign a simple number, it will be integer. And if we assign a piece of text, it will be of type string. But I suggest you that you use a type. Because firstly, reading it for other people would be very easier. And another reason is that because you are a beginner, it will root into your memory how the values work. If you want to help me create more videos like this, you can consider subscribing and liking this video. You can also buy me a cup of coffee from the link in the description and help me become a full-time YouTuber. Thank you for watching, bye bye.